Shalom, my friends. Today I want to open up and share something that completely changed my life and brought me success, protection, and stability through every challenge I've ever faced. It's not just a business lesson, and it's not just a mindset technique. It's something much deeper. Ancient wisdom rooted in the Torah, a principle that has carried the Jewish people through centuries of exile, pressure, and hardship. When you truly understand and apply this, you reach a point where external situations and other people can no longer control your inner world. The principle is simple, yet extremely powerful. Learn to carry yourself in a way where nothing shakes you. Now, don't misunderstand this. I'm not talking about pretending you don't feel emotions. I'm not talking about suppressing yourself or becoming numb. This is not about acting cold or detached from life. It's about developing control over your inner state so that whatever happens outside of you does not dictate your peace, your clarity, or your direction. It means building an inner stability that stays intact no matter what is happening around you. Because the reality is, if every small comment affects you, if every setback pulls you down, if every criticism enters your mind and disturbs your focus, then you are slowly handing over your power to the outside world. And when that happens, you stop leading your life and start reacting to it. That is not how success is built. That is not how wealth is created. And it is definitely not how a meaningful life is shaped. If you look closely at truly successful and influential people, you will notice something about them. They don't get easily shaken. They don't react to every opinion or obstacle. They carry themselves with a kind of steady presence, as if they are anchored in something deeper than circumstances. And that is exactly their strength. They understand that real power is not about controlling others, it is about controlling yourself. Let me share a story to make this clearer. There was a man named Shimon, a businessman from my community. He started from nothing and built a strong company over the years. He employed many people, supported his family, and gave generously to those in need. But despite his success, there was one area where he struggled deeply. He was extremely affected by what others thought of him. Every piece of criticism stayed in his mind. Every failed deal disturbed him for days. Every disagreement made him doubt himself. Because of this, his emotional state was constantly unstable. Then one day, things got worse. A competitor began spreading false rumors about him. Lies were being shared to damage his reputation and take away his clients. Shimon was devastated. He felt angry, hurt, and ready to fight back immediately. He wanted to prove everything wrong and defend himself at any cost. In frustration, he came to me and spoke about taking strong action against his competitor. I asked him gently, "Shimon, do you remember the story of Joseph in the Torah?" He paused, confused, and asked what Joseph had to do with his situation. I told him everything. Joseph was the beloved son of Jacob. His brothers were jealous of him because of his dreams and the special love his father had for him. That jealousy turned into hatred. One day they attacked him, threw him into a pit, and eventually sold him into slavery. Then they lied to their father, making him believe Joseph was gone forever. Imagine being Joseph, only 17 years old, suddenly taken away from everything familiar, alone in a foreign place, sold as a slave, with every reason to become bitter, angry, and broken inside. But Joseph did something extraordinary. He didn't let his circumstances break his spirit. He didn't react with hatred or revenge. He didn't allow pain to control his behavior. Instead, he remained composed. He carried himself with dignity. He continued to work with excellence wherever he was placed. He stayed focused, steady, and responsible, as if he was not defined by what had happened to him. Because of that inner strength, he began to rise. He gained trust. He was given responsibility. Even in a place of slavery, he found favor and progress. And then, just when things seemed to improve, he was falsely accused of something he did not do. He was thrown into prison again. Once again, he had every reason to collapse emotionally, to become bitter, to give up completely. But even then, he did not allow his inner state to be ruled by external injustice. The same truth played out again in Joseph's life. He didn't let prison define him. He carried himself with the same discipline, excellence, and calm presence as before, as if his external situation had no authority over his inner world. And because of that consistency, everything changed. Over time, he was lifted to become second in command over all of Egypt. Then life came full circle. The same brothers who once betrayed him, threw him into a pit, and sold him off, came back to him during a famine, desperate for food and survival. At that moment, Joseph had every opportunity to respond emotionally. He had the power to punish them, to make them suffer, to settle every old score. Most people would have called it justice. Most people would have justified revenge. But he didn't. He stayed grounded. He remained steady. He chose understanding over anger. He forgave them and provided for them instead. He saw a much bigger picture than the pain he once went through. This is emotional mastery in its highest form. It's the ability to remain steady even when life gives you every reason to collapse. It's what it means to truly act as if nothing bothers you. Not because you don't feel anything, but because you are not controlled by what you feel. Joseph felt the betrayal. He felt the injustice. He felt the pain like any human would. But he never allowed those emotions to dictate his actions or shape his identity. He stayed aligned with purpose, character, and destiny. And because of that inner strength, he rose to become one of the most powerful figures of his time. When I shared this with Shimon, I told him, "What your competitor is doing is no different from Joseph being thrown into the pit. You now have a choice. You can react emotionally, enter the conflict, defend yourself aggressively, and let the situation consume your mind. Or you can rise above it. You can act as if it doesn't shake you. You can stay focused on your work, your clients, your standards. Let your actions speak louder than any rumor ever could. And in time, truth always reveals itself." Shimon took that seriously. He chose silence instead of reaction. He didn't engage in arguments. He didn't try to fight the rumors directly. He simply continued to work with discipline, serve his clients, and maintain a high standard of excellence. And something interesting happened. Within a few months, the rumors lost their power. People stopped repeating them. The competitor who started it eventually lost credibility. And instead of being damaged, Shimon's reputation became even stronger. People began to notice something different about him. His calmness, his stability, his quiet confidence, and that earned him even more trust than before. This is the real power of emotional mastery. This is what it means to act as if nothing bothers you. Not denial, not suppression, but deep inner control. In the Torah, King Solomon, known in King Solomon, one of the wisest and wealthiest figures in history, teaches that a person who cannot control their anger lacks wisdom, while the one who masters themselves demonstrates true strength. This is not just moral teaching. It is a principle of success, leadership, and long-term stability. Because when you control your emotions, you control your direction. When your emotions control you, you lose clarity and power. So the real question becomes, how do you build this kind of emotional discipline? Here are key principles drawn from Torah wisdom. First, understand this clearly. Emotions are not facts. Just because you feel something strongly does not mean it is true or needs immediate action. Feelings like anger, fear, or anxiety are signals, not instructions. They inform you, but they should not command you. In the teachings of the Talmudic studies, true strength is described as the ability to restrain impulses and choose response over reaction. Second, separate your identity from external conditions. You are not your business, your income, or people's opinions about you. Your value is not defined by temporary success or failure. When your identity is rooted in something deeper, nothing outside can destabilize you. Joseph understood this deeply. Whether as a servant or prisoner, he never forgot who he was internally. Third, practice the pause. Before reacting to anything that triggers you, stop for a moment. Breathe. Step back mentally. Ask yourself whether this reaction is actually necessary or just emotional impulse. Most of the time, silence or patience holds more power than immediate reaction. Even Moses, one of the greatest leaders in history described in the Torah, demonstrated this. He didn't react emotionally to criticism or rebellion. He paused, reflected, and responded with wisdom instead of impulse. Fourth, focus only on what is within your control. You cannot control people's opinions, market changes, or external events, but you can control your discipline, your actions, your integrity, and your effort. Once you accept this, you stop wasting energy on things you cannot change and start building strength in what you can influence. As written in Ecclesiastes, life has seasons, moments of growth and moments of challenge. Understanding this brings emotional stability because you stop reacting as if every setback is permanent. Fifth, train your mind through visualization. Each morning, picture yourself moving through the day with calm confidence. See yourself handling criticism without disturbance. See yourself responding with clarity instead of emotion. This mental rehearsal slowly reshapes your inner reactions. Sixth, protect your energy by choosing your response carefully. Not everything deserves attention. Not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is wisdom in action. And seventh, remind yourself daily that your destiny is not shaped by what happens to you, but by how you respond to what happens to you. When you apply these principles consistently, something changes inside you. You stop being easily shaken. You stop reacting to every situation. You begin to move through life with clarity, strength, and quiet confidence. That is the true meaning of acting as if nothing bothers you. See yourself going through a difficult moment and still staying calm. Imagine a situation where something goes wrong, yet instead of reacting emotionally, you stay centered and composed. Picture yourself in the middle of conflict, choosing silence or wisdom over impulsive response. When you repeat this mental image again and again, it starts shaping your inner reality. Your mind does not clearly distinguish between something vividly imagined and something actually experienced. Over time, what you consistently visualize becomes how you naturally respond in real life. That's why it's important to train your mind toward emotional mastery instead of emotional reaction. So you begin to program yourself for stability, for control, for inner peace. The sixth principle is developing a strong and meaningful purpose. When you have clarity about where you are going in life, small issues no longer shake you. Distractions lose their power because your focus becomes anchored in something bigger than temporary problems. When you are connected to a deeper vision, your energy stops being wasted on things that don't truly matter. Joseph lived with that kind of awareness. He carried a sense of destiny inside him. He understood that his life had meaning and direction, even when circumstances looked completely opposite. That is why setbacks did not destroy him. They delayed nothing inside him. It is important to ask yourself honestly, what am I building in my life? What direction am I moving toward? What impact or legacy do I want to leave behind? When these answers become clear, outside noise starts to lose influence over your emotions. The seventh principle is learning to practice gratitude even during difficulty. This is one of the most powerful shifts a person can make. When something goes wrong, instead of reacting with frustration or complaint, you consciously choose gratitude. You say to yourself, this is not random, this is shaping me. This is a lesson. This is growth in disguise. In the language of faith, you can even say thank you for the challenge, thank you for the refinement, thank you for building something stronger inside me. In the wisdom of the Torah, people are taught to acknowledge the divine in both good and difficult times because every experience carries meaning. Every obstacle can become a turning point. Every setback can eventually lead to a greater rise. What looks like delay is often preparation. When you learn to respond with gratitude in hardship, something changes in your mindset. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone being shaped by them. Your entire internal identity shifts from helplessness to strength, from reaction to control. Now let me give you a practical method you can actually apply. For the next 30 days, practice what I call the nothing disturbs me discipline. Whenever something happens that would normally trigger anger, stress, or frustration, pause for a moment. Take a breath and calmly tell yourself, this does not control me. I choose peace. I remain in control. At first, it may feel unnatural. You might not fully believe it when you say it. But that is not the point. The point is repetition, because your words influence your inner conditioning. What you repeatedly declare, your mind slowly begins to accept. Over time, this becomes your default response. Instead of instant reaction, you develop space. Instead of emotional impulse, you develop choice. Many years ago, I personally practiced this same approach. At that time, I was much more reactive. Small problems felt big. Criticism affected me deeply. Unexpected setbacks would disturb my entire day. But I trained myself to respond differently. I practiced staying calm even when I did not feel like it. Slowly, that practice changed my nature. Now, when I face criticism, I don't get shaken. When something doesn't work out, I don't collapse emotionally. When someone tries to provoke a reaction, I simply do not enter that space. This is not because life stopped being challenging. It is because I stopped giving challenges control over my inner state. That is emotional mastery. And the foundation of it is reclaiming your internal power from external events. To close this teaching, there is a powerful verse in the book of Psalms from Psalms, written by King David, who is described as a deeply spiritual and influential leader in King David. He says that when the divine is your source of strength and protection, there is nothing left to fear. When a person truly anchors their identity in something higher than public opinion, temporary failure, or external validation, they become internally stable. Criticism loses its weight. Fear loses its grip. Circumstances lose their power to define you. So move forward with this understanding. Practice emotional mastery daily. Train your mind to remain steady. Strengthen your ability to respond instead of react. Watch how your life begins to shift, how your confidence grows, and how your presence becomes stronger. Because when you master your emotions, you are no longer controlled by life, you begin to lead it. And one final reminder, this is not about ignoring injustice or becoming passive. It is about responding from wisdom instead of emotion. Even Moses, one of the greatest leaders described in the Torah, faced criticism from those closest to him, including his own family. Yet he did not react impulsively. He remained grounded, humble, and composed. He did not fight every battle emotionally, because he understood that true strength is restraint. And in time, the situation resolved in a way that even defended him without him needing to destroy himself emotionally in the process. That is the deeper level of strength, not reacting from pain, but responding from clarity. This same truth appears again in the story of Miriam, when she spoke about Moses and was later struck with leprosy as a consequence of gossip. The deeper message behind this is not just punishment, but awareness of how powerful speech, emotion, and restraint really are. It shows what happens when words are driven by impulse instead of wisdom. And this brings us back to the core principle. When you truly act as if nothing bothers you, when you remain steady instead of reactive, and when you place your trust in something higher than immediate emotion, life often has a way of correcting itself. People eventually see your consistency. They recognize your character, and over time, respect naturally follows. But there is an important distinction you must understand clearly. There is a big difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instant, emotional, and uncontrolled. It happens in the heat of the moment without thought or direction. Responding, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is calm. It is intentional. It is guided by awareness rather than impulse. When someone wrongs you, you don't have to react emotionally. But that does not mean you ignore everything. Sometimes you must respond. If someone is truly harming you, crossing boundaries, or threatening your stability, then action is necessary. The difference is how you take that action. You respond from clarity, not chaos. From strength, not anger. From wisdom, not emotion. You assess the situation properly, think through your options, and act in a way that protects your peace and your future rather than destroying it in the moment. This is exactly what Joseph demonstrated when he later revealed himself to his brothers. He did not act out of revenge. He did not let emotions take over. Instead, he observed them, tested their behavior, and made sure their intentions had changed. Only then, from a place of full emotional control, he chose forgiveness and support. That is the balance. That is the deeper wisdom. You maintain inner calm as your default state, but when action is needed, you respond with intelligence and strength. Now let me give you some practical tools that can help you build this level of emotional discipline in real life. The first tool is a trigger journal. For 1 week, write down every situation that disturbs your peace. Note what happened, who was involved, what emotion came up, and how you reacted. When you review it, patterns will begin to appear. You'll notice certain situations or people consistently affect you. That awareness alone is powerful, because once you can see your triggers clearly, you can begin preparing your response instead of being controlled by them. The second tool is creating a power phrase. Choose a simple sentence you can repeat whenever you feel emotionally triggered. Something like, "I am in control," or "This doesn't define me," or "I choose peace," or "This will pass." Repeat it in the moment of tension. Over time, this becomes a mental switch that interrupts emotional escalation before it takes over. The third tool is the 24-hour rule. Whenever something deeply upsetting happens, do not respond immediately. Do not send the message, make the call, or take action in anger. Wait a full day. Give your mind time to settle. When you revisit the situation after 24 hours, your perception will be completely different. What felt urgent and emotional often becomes clear and manageable with distance, and your response becomes far more effective because it comes from calm thinking instead of emotional pressure. The fourth tool is being intentional about your environment. You are heavily influenced by the people around you. If you constantly surround yourself with reactive, emotional, or dramatic individuals, that energy will shape you over time. But if you choose to be around calm, stable, and grounded people, you naturally absorb that mindset. In our tradition, there is guidance about carefully choosing your mentors and friendships, and always trying to judge others with fairness. This is not just moral advice, it is emotional protection. The people you spend time with either stabilize your mind or destabilize it. The fifth tool is daily reflection through meditation and prayer. Taking time each day to slow your mind, reflect, and reconnect with purpose completely shifts your internal state. It creates space between you and your emotions. It reminds you that you are not just reacting to life, you are consciously living it. Personally, I spend time each morning in prayer and reflection. I mentally prepare for the day, visualize how I want to respond to challenges, and reconnect with a sense of purpose. That practice alone has been a major factor in developing emotional stability over time. Now let me share something personal. About 10 years ago, I was deeply involved in a business partnership that had the potential to be extremely successful. I had invested time, effort, and a lot of emotional energy into it. But at the last moment, the other party withdrew and even used the idea we had built together to start something on their own. I felt betrayed. I felt anger rising. I wanted to react immediately, take legal action, and respond emotionally. I was very close to making decisions that would have come from frustration rather than clarity. But I stopped myself. I stepped back. I waited. I reflected. I reminded myself of the wisdom I had learned from the stories of Joseph and Moses in the Torah and from teachings found in Proverbs. I asked myself simple but powerful questions. Will this matter years from now? Is this reaction worth losing my peace? What is the most intelligent way forward, not the most emotional one? And I realized something important. Any revenge or emotional reaction would cost me far more internally than the situation itself. It would drain my focus, my time, and my energy. So instead of reacting, I chose to redirect my attention into building, growing, and moving forward. That decision protected my peace and ultimately strengthened my path. This is the real meaning of emotional mastery. Not ignoring reality, not avoiding action, but choosing response over reaction, clarity over impulse, and wisdom over emotion. When you live this way consistently, you become steady. And when you become steady, life stops controlling you.